Probably.
He wants to be on.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight is November 25th, 2020, and we are blessed to be able to. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, to be able to be here with you this evening. This is our Q&A. The doctors are in, and we invite you to come in and ask any questions that you may have. Also, you can feel free to email us ahead of time, and we are going to be sure to respond to any questions that you have that you send in to us. This is a free-for-all, meaning that anything goes, any kind of concern that you have with regards to health and wellness. We will definitely be here to listen, and we will do our best to answer. There may be some things that we may have to defer and say that, we're going to do some research on it, or we may say that we are going to get to one of our partners and get that question or concern addressed. Whatever it may be, we are here for you today. And we are going to be doing this every Wednesday at 8 p.m. because we have come to the realization that there are a lot of things that are happening in our world today. There are a lot of needs, there are a lot of questions, there's a lot of confusion, uncertainty, and we want to be here to address those concerns. Dr. Clark?
Yes, absolutely. I'm honored to be here tonight. As you stated, the doctors are in open office, so I am so honored again to be able to share this platform with you, Dr. Michelle, to be able to inform our people, because we're living in a time where we need that. So many people are going through. And especially on the holidays, we were talking about the SAD syndrome, the seasonal affective disorder. So those are some of the things that I would like to, to talk about, because again, it's definitely needed. A lot of people don't know what the signs are. So informing people, knowledge is power. So when we do that, it's just, it's a great opportunity to be able to share that information.
Yeah, so there are so many things that we're dealing with. We are on the eve of Thanksgiving here in the United States. For those of you who are looking at this from other nations, one of the customary traditions here in the United States is to have time to spend with family. And this is an event that is looked forward to by many, many families within the United States. Unfortunately, this year, many families are challenged and many families are questioning whether or not to come together. In light of that, I actually had a phenomenal interaction with someone who came by to work on my water filtration system, because I have a drinking water filtration system in my house. So he came by yesterday to work on it, and we got to talking, and I said, "Hey, what are you going to do for Thanksgiving?" And I was just my heart was warmed when he said to me, he said, at first we were hesitant about having our family gather for our usual traditional Thanksgiving gathering, because we were concerned about my mother-in-law, who is 76. But a couple of weeks ago, my mother-in-law, she called and she said, "Look, if you all are trying to cancel Thanksgiving on me, you better think twice." Because she said, "Look, I have lived 76 long, hard years. And, when God wants to take me, God will take me. But in the meantime, I'm here to celebrate life, and I want to be around my family."
Isn't that something? Oh, wow, that's great.
That is fantastic.
Great.
And I said, wow. Yes, awesome, awesome, awesome sauce, Grandma, And yet we don't hear these stories in the news. We don't hear these stories.
No, we don't.
We think about our seniors as being these poor, fragile, frightened little creatures. And a lot of them are feisty. I don't know about you, but I know some feisty old folks. It's like the older they get.
Right, with a lot of energy and just empowered,
Exactly. So I love that spirit of feistiness. I also love that spirit of living life to its fullest because Dr. Clark, I'd love for you to speak into this. In these times, it seems that so many people are walking around as the living dead.
Yes.
Their bodies are functional, but
Yes.
their hearts, their minds, their souls are just dead. There's the spirit of life that you would see in their eyes is just gone. Can you talk with us about that?
Yes, I agree. Definitely. People are, it's like walking zombies in a sense. People are operating out of fear.
Yeah.
And, it's the fight or flight pretty much situation that a lot of people are in. And that's what we're experiencing. So people don't know which direction to go in. They don't know if they're going to have a job tomorrow. They don't know if they're going to be able to have food on the table, if they're going to be able to pay their mortgage and, everything else. So that's why people are operating the way we see them. And everything always starts from the top. And as you know, we have the president election that just took place. And a lot of people put their faith in that instead of believing, elsewhere their spiritual, whatever their spiritual walk is. And I always encourage people, that's not where you should put your faith in because things are going to happen. This is not the first time and it's not going to be the last. So, again, that's why people are walking as if they're asleep, the COVID. So many people, again, of the fear, the mask that people are wearing. People are wearing not just the physical mask, but also the spiritual mask, as we say, the mask off and, taking off their mask internally as well. And so people are being revealed. God is unveiling so many things right now. And he's unveiling the true heart of man as well.
So now I see we have someone with us. We have Dee Lubell. Oh my gosh, it has been eons since I've seen you. Girl. It is so good.
It's so good to see you, Doctor. Doctor, it's so good to see you.
Oh my goodness. What brings us to what brings you here tonight? What are some things that you would like for us to talk about?
Just what you were just talking about, just what happens, I see it all the time, and I'm so concerned about it happening to me. I of course I turn to writing. I write a lot now, and as I did before, but more now. And but every now and then I find myself sort of in a place that's not as familiar, that I'm not so accustomed to. And so what I do, what I decided to do was to get a watch, a smart watch, and within an hour, I have to do at least 250 steps.
Woohoo! Yes.
So,
Wow.
and it reminds me to make certain, and if I've done 100, it'll tell me you've got 150 more to go. So it keeps me up, moving around, and that is wonderful. I feel much better. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned something that you said that you're concerned that it doesn't happen to you. What is it that you are
What I'm
concerned
talking about is that unfamiliar place, where, of course, I have a lot of energy. And when I find myself very quiet, a lot of times I'm meditating, but other times I'm wondering because I guess I'm so concerned about everybody. And, and I guess that plays a part in what I do. And I don't really go out that much. And the reason is because I go over to, I visit my oldest brother and his wife, and they have underlying issues. My youngest sister also. And so therefore I try to make certain that I'm clear and protecting myself. So I know as long as I protect myself, I'm protecting others as well.
Yes.
But I want, and I'm not sleeping the way I'm just not sleeping much at night. I will go 3 or 4 hours at night, and that's it. I really need to sleep longer.
What time are you going? What time are you going to bed?
Yeah.
Well, it varies. For a while there, I was going to bed 9, 10 o'clock. but then I would be awake and I'd be up for a while, and then I'd go back later on. But now I've decided, let me just wait and go to bed around 11.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still, I will not go beyond 4 hours still.
Mm-hmm. Have you had an opportunity to have your blood glucose checked
Yes.
and your fasting blood glucose?
Well, you know what? I don't eat sugar or anything like that, or I don't deal with a lot of carbs either. But the last time I had everything checked, I was at 74.
Mm-hmm. Because sometimes when people, okay, well, let's backtrack a little bit. When we're talking about not having continuous sleep, the question becomes, why are we waking up at a certain time? For you, you said after about 3 or 4 hours, you'll wake up.
Or at least
So
4. Sometimes I'll go to 5.
yeah,
That's a great night when I go to 5.
yeah. So
That
about
means
4 to
I've done
5
a lot of
hours.
work during the day.
Okay, so about 4 to 5 hours. So there are a couple of possibilities. Number one, to look at what you are consuming before you go to sleep. Meaning, if you are consuming something that your body just kind of zips through, and you get to say 4 or 5 hours, and your body's like, we're running out of energy. We need some recruits here. And if your blood glucose is dipping too low after that amount of time, then what will happen is that your body will literally try to save you. So it'll pump up the cortisol in your system. So
Okay.
because when the cortisol is released, then your system starts to look for different things that it can convert into glucose to give you that energy. Okay. So when that cortisol is released, the byproduct of that is that you wake up.
Oh, wow, that's very interesting. That's very, very interesting. The other thing is that I think is anxiety, because, and I was dealing with, which I'm writing about that now, but in 2016, I think I told you about that. 2016, my sister, I was very close to her, and she passed. And then my girlfriend, 2 weeks after my sister was buried, my girlfriend, since 8 or 9 years old in school, passed. And then my husband passed, and I memorialized my girlfriend. I came to my hometown and memorialized her and had her buried with her mom. And a month later, my husband passed.
I'm sorry.
So since that time, it's just, I guess I think because I was so close to all of them, very, very close. I mean, my sister, I might have spoken with her 2 or 3 times a day. My girlfriend, very often. She was in California, but we talked all the time. And of course, then my husband, and so I think that also has something to do with it.
So now when you're talking about the sleep pattern shifting, how long has it been that you've been experiencing this shortened amount of sleep?
Since that time, 2016 or 2017.
Oh.
And I'm wondering if it might have been a little bit before, because he was ill, and therefore I would have to just wake up, I guess, and just make sure that he was okay. But in addition to that, I think it was maybe after. I think it was maybe after that.
So do you feel that you have processed the loss of those 3 major people in your life, or do you feel that you still need to complete your grieving process?
I have to complete the grieving process. So in the meantime, what I'm doing now to help me is that I'm writing about the losses about my losses from my grandmother, grandfather forward, and my mom, dad. I've had 3 siblings to pass, so I'm writing about them. Yeah. And so, and there are certain times when I get to a certain point as I'm talking about them, I have to pause for a while, and then I'll start writing an essay or something. But it has been therapeutic, I must say.
I'm going to ask Dr. Clark to step in, and then I'll come back and talk more about what you've shared so far, Dee.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, yes, I'm still here, just working on my video. Yes.
Do you want to speak a little bit into the process of working through our grief, especially now, when we come to these periods of time of the holidays, those will bring back memories of being with the ones who are dear to us.
Yes, absolutely. When you asked her was her about her sugar, her glucose level, and being that she's lost 2 great people that were dear to her, a lot of times that's what we go through. Everyone grieves differently. So, sometimes, again, it's very hard to go to sleep. It's the mindset. A lot of things are just racing through our mind at the same time, and missing those that are close to you. I mean, those are people that were really, really close. She's known, the majority of her life.
Yes.
So I can definitely understand and relate to that because, of losing my husband, of course. So it's very hard, to rest sometimes. And, it's just always tell people that it's always good to have someone, have a support system if you can, have someone that understands what you're going through. Just pick up the phone in the middle of the night when you're not able to go to sleep, when you're restless, because those are the times when you really need someone.
Absolutely.
Have someone who's going to hold you accountable, having an accountability partner. So those are some of the tips that I like to offer to individuals that are going through and that they're grieving. Sometimes you don't want to be bothered, but when you, in those moments that you do want someone, it's always great to have that person right there that's going to be available and that understands your situation.
Right.
So now, as we look at the process of grieving, because this has been for you a process that has been 3 to 4 years from the first loss to the third. And one of the things that we look at is that what starts out as an emotional, mental, spiritual loss starts to also affect the physiology. And then it becomes a kind of catch-22 situation where one starts to lead on into the other, and you just keep spiraling downwards. So what we want to do is interrupt that pattern. One of the things that I would love to suggest is, well, let me first ask the question. How much TV or other things do you have just prior to going to bed? When do you shut down on your electronic devices?
Oh my, that is something to think about because I'm really engaged in politics. I mean, oh my, am I engaged in politics? So, now I have no problem going to sleep. I've never had a problem going to sleep. It's just that after I've slept for a period of time, I will awake. And but yeah, I guess maybe that might have something to do with it. And then again, too, I'm on the computer when I'm doing my writing, see?
Because a lot of times we don't realize the effect that the lights from the computer has on stimulating our hormonal systems. So even though we are, quote unquote, going to sleep, we've still caused certain erratic patterns within our hormonal system. And the ones that we're talking about specifically here are your melatonin, as well as your cortisol. So for instance, when you say, well, I tried, well, let me go to sleep at 11. Well, the thing is that certain patterns with your what we call circadian rhythms with your cortisol, they're best put at bed, literally, between 9 and 10:30 p.m. When you allow yourself to go past, say, 10:30, 11 o'clock, then you may have a tendency of getting a second wind. So you may notice that if you stay up past 11, then all of a sudden you're like, whoo, okay, I got some more to write. Yeah. And all of a sudden you have this muse that starts speaking to you, and you can write a whole chapter of a book in that moment.
Right. That's
because
true.
you've lost that wonderful window of opening for catching the ride or catching the wave of the melatonin and the cortisol. So that's
Something else that occurred to me in 2018, my oldest brother had congestive heart failure. And I think I was right in the middle of, at the time, of working on my grieving, right? And so I started to go over and I prepared his breakfast, lunch, and dinner to make sure he would be okay, because I couldn't even fathom the thought of losing another sibling. And so as he got better, I did just the breakfast and lunch. And I did that for 2 years. And then I started just doing breakfast every morning. I would drive over to his home every day.
Wow.
For 2 years. And I just stopped not long ago. And I just go now to restock the medication. He's much better. He's doing well. His heart is, everything's back to where it's supposed to be. Because I realized when a person's ill, they need company. They need someone around. They need life. And I would always open the windows, the blinds, and everything. And he was, and now my youngest sister goes over from Monday through Thursday to prepare breakfast. But I don't know if I just got really caught up in that. And I was taking him to the doctor and all of those things. And I think in my mind, I was just so busy trying to make sure that he would be okay, that it was a job for me to make certain that he was eating the right thing, that I was, getting enough water and walking and all. And I was very pleased when I took him for his last checkup, and they said his heart, everything was fine, back to normal. And I was very pleased about that.
So do you feel that you were getting better sleep when you were caring for him, or now that you have relaxed some of the responsibilities that you have?
I think I'm probably getting more now.
Getting more sleep now. Okay. So going back to what we were saying in terms of supporting all of the restorative patterns within our body, mind, heart, and soul, one of the things that I always suggest to the people that I work with who are having sleep issues is to create a nightly ritual. So if you discern that you want to be sleeping by 10, then we work backwards from there, and we say, okay, if I'm going to be sleeping by 10, then I want to be in bed by 9:30. If I'm going to be in bed by 9:30, then I want to shut down my devices by, say, 8 o'clock, an hour and a half prior to that. And that time before going to bed becomes your sacred time for journaling. And even if you're writing, I encourage you to consider dictating. So there are different dictating programs that you can have on your phone.
That is absolutely okay.
Yeah, that will ensure that you don't have to be exposed to all of that bright lights in terms of you clacking on your computer trying to get your information in. So you can dictate on these programs, and one of the programs that you can look into is Otter, OTTER, and it enables you to dictate into your phone. And then later it actually converts it into text for you, and you can have it sent to your email or your Google Drive or whatever it is. But whatever it is, to have that process of winding down so that we start to catch the wave of allowing our cortisol levels to come down. And so that's one thing to look into. And then, as you said, if you're waking up after, say, 4 or 5 hours, are you waking up because the cortisol is surging because your blood glucose is going low, which is something that I would definitely look into, since you said the last time you had your blood glucose checked, it was, say, at like 74, which tends to give me a peek into, okay, perhaps the blood glucose is dipping down low in the middle of the night and therefore causing that surge of cortisol. Or, you have another scenario where people have these ruminating thoughts. They're just like, all this chatter, so they'll wake up and it's all of these thoughts there that they're processing. They've got to save the world. They've got to figure out
That's
every
true,
single
because
problem.
there's so many different things I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And I
So
think
if that's the case, then we start to look into things such as whether or not you have sufficient GABA production, to be able to calm down some of that significant overthinking in the middle of the night.
I know, because sometimes I go to bed with other thoughts. I'm like, okay, let me finish writing this, and that's on my mind, or I don't know, just
Yes.
And then the last thing that I would say is to really utilize that time before bed for prayer. And prayer in the sense of handing it over to God.
Yes.
And saying, you know what? I know you got this. I know you got this. I know you got this. Because part of sleep is that we go into our subconscious, and that is probably the only time that we allow God to take control.
Yes.
Because every other time in our life, we're constantly saying, I got this. I know what to do. I've got to do this. I've got to figure out that. So sleep is the only time that God can step in the back door, so to speak, and whisper to us, because that's the only time when we're not busy putting forward our agenda.
Right. That's right.
Dr. Clark?
Okay.
Yes, I was definitely going to elaborate on that when I mentioned earlier, as far as, your thought patterns, because a lot of times at night, like I mentioned, you have racing thoughts in your subconscious mind, because your subconscious mind holds over a billion of thoughts. And so when you're asleep, that's when that happens. And that's why it's so important for you to, before you go to sleep, to always do something positive. An hour before. I know you mentioned that you like to watch the news for the politics. So when you're asleep, subconsciously I'm sorry.
I also do deep breathing. I usually, because I exercise every evening also, and do some push-ups before I go to bed. Yeah.
Yes, that's good. Something positive. Listening to positive music. Affirmations. Yes, soft, soothing music, instrumental music is great as well. Affirmations, certain scriptures or words that you like, that are going to be repetitive. Sometimes, going with headphones on while you're asleep as well.
Okay.
Something positive. Yeah, sleeping while, with the headphones on. I've done that before, and I find that to be soothing, and you fall asleep listening to that. So, because again, your memory bank, your subconscious mind is like your memory bank. And you're going to have, yes. So, you're going to have thoughts that are going to come up, things that you've experienced, and we'd be surprised years of even traumatic events that we've gone through.
I tell you, really, truly.
So a lot to think about, Dee. And one other thing, the next time you meet with your primary care provider, to ask for them to do 4 different tests. Number 1, fasting blood glucose. Number 2, A1C. Number 3, LDH. And number 4, fasting insulin. Okay. And it's important to get all of these 4 together. Yeah.
Let me get a pen.
Okay.
Right. This. Okay.
So as you're getting the pen, I'll explain why. Because we want to make sure that in this period of time when you have been going through a lot of grieving, a lot of times what happens is that it overtaxes our sympathetic nervous system. And it, as Dr. Clark said when we first began, it puts you into this zone of fight or flight, where you're constantly in that sympathetic mode. And in that sympathetic mode, we tend to start to overproduce our cortisol and subsequently overproduce our insulin. And that leads into interesting dynamics when it comes to our blood glucose metabolism. And that also can start to create all kinds of interesting dynamics with our production of various neurotransmitters, in this case, specifically GABA, which will lead to those kind of ruminating thoughts, where you're constantly processing things in the middle of the night. But we want to jump in there and make sure that you aren't developing any kind of significant imbalances in your blood glucose metabolism, because as you know, that can lead to all kinds of other issues, including metabolic syndrome, diabetes, cardiovascular risk, and all of those inflammatory cascades, hormonal imbalances, all kinds of things. The other thing to consider is that you are an older woman, and so you are postmenopausal, and there are certain hormonal balances that can relate to this, wherein if you have low amounts of progesterone, and given the fact that you're older, you will have lower amounts of progesterone, but I'm saying lower amounts of progesterone relative to your estrogen, that can also lead to that situation where it's difficult for you to stay asleep. Because as you said, there's a difference between falling asleep and staying asleep. And in your problem, you're having difficulty staying asleep. And that's a very big distinction to keep in mind. So the 4 tests that we were saying are the fasting blood glucose, the A1C, LDH, and fasting insulin. The LDH in particular will tell us if your blood glucose is dipping at certain points in time. And fasting insulin will tell us if you're overproducing your insulin, which goes hand in hand with too much cortisol being utilized, overtaxing your adrenals and overtaxing your sympathetic nervous system.
Okay, so I will be going next Friday morning because I was just at the doctor for, and for, what do you call it? I can't even think of it right now. Anyway, for my regular routine. And, but I'm going back on Friday morning of next week. And then is when I'll have the lab work.
Okay,
So
yeah.
Wait, this is right on time.
Perfect. Yeah.
And there was something else you said I should check.
So, well, those 4 are the ones that would be in your blood chemistry.
I do find that the something that I take, but I take it in the morning, I guess I should take it in the evening. I find that it works, which is magnesium.
Yes. So that's the other thing, that you may have certain imbalances of certain key minerals. So your magnesium levels will definitely relate to whether or not you're able to shift into your parasympathetic mode. So a lot of times when you're having difficulty relaxing, it's because you don't have certain key minerals such as the magnesium. And that's something that, again, your doctor can do a test to find out what your magnesium levels are. And to find out if you have sufficient. And that can also become part of your evening ritual, to do a bath in Epsom salt, with Epsom salt, because your Epsom salt will not only give you that magnesium content, but it'll also help to relax you, give that deep sense of relaxation, so that not only will you fall asleep, but it'll be a deep sleep.
I know
that
it
it's
really
more
does
likely to be
get that
sustained.
bad at night. Okay, so the magnesium, I should check that. The potassium as well, probably, right?
Well, they will do that as part of their
Yeah.
CMP. So they'll do that as part of, they're going to do a sodium, magnesium, potassium, chloride, carbon dioxide. All of that will be part of one particular panel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, now how about, I guess I should ask them to check my vitamin D.
Oh, absolutely. Because we're going into cold and flu season, and
Right.
what they've found with COVID patients,
Uh-huh.
that practically all of them have vitamin C deficiencies.
Well, I take vitamin C and I take vitamin D as well.
Well, vitamin C and vitamin D.
Yeah.
So I have yet to see someone actually have sufficient vitamin D levels unless they're
I know it. And my sister said,
unless they're taking supplemental vitamin D. But I have never seen anyone have adequate levels of vitamin D unless they're taking vitamin D supplementation. I just haven't seen it. And when I talk about optimal levels of vitamin D, I'm not talking about what the pathology ranges are. So pathology ranges are, if you have 30, then your medical doctor is happy and doing the cucaracha dance, right? That is not optimal.
That's not optimal.
No, optimal vitamin D levels need to be at least 50, if not 60 or 70 and above. And especially going into the cold and flu season and having that understanding of how the coronavirus operates. So you definitely want to have that vitamin D3 checked.
All right, I take 5,000 units a day.
Well, we want to make sure that your body's actually metabolizing it.
I know. I mean, I'm going to have that checked, but I also take hot liver oil every morning.
Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that your body is actually metabolizing the vitamin D, and that it is at a sufficient level, because everyone has a different level of need.
Oh, that's so true. Yes.
So, and especially African Americans, we tend to need more vitamin D than most people, because our body has difficulty processing it because of the melanin in our skin.
Exactly. That's right. Now, the last thing I want to ask you is, in terms of the flu shot, the doctor was saying to me that I've never taken a flu shot. I'm usually okay because my cod liver oil, my D, my C, I take B12 with 6, and that's also very helpful. She wants me to take the flu, the pneumonia, the shingles, and one other. I have not done that.
Well, I cannot advise you on what to do. I can just tell you what I will do. I will never take a flu shot, because the research that I have done indicates that it actually makes you more at risk for things like the COVID.
Exactly.
That's what I personally am doing in my life.
I've not gotten it.
And what I do is that I work on strengthening my natural immune system that was given to me by our lovely creator, because I think God knows a little bit more than man. I'm also concerned about the tremendous increase in what we are observing with things like autoimmune issues, as well as other immune distortions that are occurring in our communities. And when we look at, again, how do we fortify our natural immune systems, it is not by introducing a foreign agent that has all kinds of cofactors, that it's this interesting toxic soup that they put these attenuated viruses in, because they need those toxic elements to make those particular forms of the virus more potent, in order to stimulate the immune system more effectively. So it creates interesting dynamics. And for those people who want to take the vaccine, I take my hats off to you, and God bless you. I personally will not be taking the flu vaccine ever, never have, never will. But what I do, as you said, is to really fortify the system. So that's in a variety of different ways. Number one, I encourage people to do a cleanse, to do a cleanse where you're clearing away the excess toxicity that would create a considerable energetic draw on your immune system and all of your metabolic systems. And then to look at things like quercetin, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin A, zinc, very, very important, zinc,
How many milligrams of the zinc?
It really depends. So basic levels would be like 25, but there are certain people who need more. So for instance,
Maybe I better have that checked as well.
Yeah, so I would definitely look at doing a zinc check.
Okay.
And also look at checking your copper and ceruloplasm.
And which?
Ceruloplasm, CERULOPLASMIN, something like that. It kind of throws me when I have to think, when I have to spell in the air kind of thing. But definitely have your zinc levels checked.
So what level should the zinc be?
Okay, that depends on a lot of things. It depends on, number one, what your copper is, number two, what your weight is, and a lot of different things. So it kind of varies, but they will let you know what the lab range is.
That's right. Yes, I do.
And then if you want to know the functional ranges, you can always get back with me. I don't have it in front of me, so I don't really know it off the top of my head, to be quite honest.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's fantastic that you're going in to get all of those things checked.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I usually do that. I try to do it every year. But some of these I don't, because I never thought about the ceruloplasm. I never thought about the copper and the zinc. But I do have to get the magnesium, the D, potassium. And the zinc I have not, but I will.
Yeah. And the only reason why I was saying the copper and the ceruloplasm is because you may have certain underlying anxiety that has developed over the years of dealing with the loss of those tremendous anchors in your life.
Okay.
And in those cases, there tends to be lower levels of zinc and higher levels of copper. So one of the things that we do is making sure that there's a proper balance between the two, which will help to take, quote unquote, the edge off of the anxiety.
Oh, wow. You all, I'm telling you, already I feel much better just hearing you all. I mean, oh, what a consolation. I mean, really, this is, now vitamin A, you mentioned vitamin A. I do eat carrots. Whatever I eat in the morning, mostly I have vegetables in the morning, or I'll have oats. And after I eat my oats, I'll then have spinach with carrots and a little beets and garlic.
Awesome. I love garlic. Yes.
Yeah.
Immune booster. Woohoo!
Yes. And so I don't know. You think I still need the A? I mean, I do the carrot thing every day.
I'm not necessarily saying that
you know what? They'll check that too.
Yeah. So I'm not necessarily saying that you need the A. I'm just saying that as we go into cold and flu season, those are the things that help us in terms of reducing the inflammation in our systems.
The A. Okay.
Your A, your D, then you have your antioxidants, such as your C, your E, right? So those are just kind of
units of E should I take? What unit of E should I take?
It just really varies. It really varies I wouldn't be able to say what levels until I had a better understanding of what's happening in your system.
Okay.
Yeah. And so even like I said, with the zinc, 25 is just a safe beginning. right? And some people are going to need more than that, just like vitamin D. In cold and flu season, I'm thinking, a minimum of 2,000. That's like minimum threshold.
Right.
But many people need much more than that because of where their levels are and because of all the different dynamics that are happening in their body. So, if you're diabetic, if you have hypertension, if you've got, high homocysteine, high CRP, all of those things would lead us to different numbers game. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So your doctor should be able to do those assessments with you, and they will be able to let you know which ones are in the pathology range. But keep in mind, pathology ranges do not necessarily indicate that you are out of the woods. So there's a big gray area that we call the not yet zone. So, between the optimal zone and their pathology range is where they're like, well, you're not yet diabetic.
I've heard people say that.
And the rest of us are like, well, that's not really a good thing to be in the not yet zone. Not yet, it's a fantastic place to be because you can turn things around so easily in that zone. Mm-hmm. Before you cross over, so to speak. So we've got Ruth on the line. Hey, Ruth.
Hey.
Hello.
And I'm just going to do a shout out for Ruth. This girl, Dee, you are in some fantastic company because Dr. Ruth here, she is phenomenal in the area of Oriental medicine. She's an acupuncturist, and she can also give you some insight into the sleep, the circadian rhythms with the sleep. Because Ruth, what we were talking about is that Dee is experiencing a situation where she'll fall asleep, but after about 4 or 5 hours, she's waking up. So how would you approach that from more of a Eastern perspective?
What time are you going to sleep, Dee?
Oh, it varies. For instance, if I've done a lot of work in the yard, now that's subsiding a bit because it's cooler, so I'm not working with the flowers as much, then I'll fall asleep 10 o'clock, 9, 10 o'clock. And if I have a lot to do, writing or something, I might not go to bed until 11. And I do that so I can sleep later in the night.
She still wakes up after 4 or 5 hours.
Still got to wake up 4 or 5 hours. That's it. Yeah.
Now, Dr. Ruth is going to jump in there and talk to us about those wonderful rhythms, because I know she's going to be able to tell us exactly which organ systems are being reflected in the fact that you're waking up at that specific time. Go for it, Dr. Ruth.
All right.
Well, that's why I asked what time you were going to sleep, because if you want to be asleep no later than midnight, because that is the time of the gallbladder, and the gallbladder sets everything else up for smooth flow. But it sounds like you're always asleep by that time. That's why I asked. When you wake up 4 or 5 hours later, there's a disruption in the yin and the yang of the body, and there's just not enough blood that's actually circulating, and the liver circulates that so that the brain gets a smooth flow of blood so the body can just go and stay asleep. Alternatively, you could be waking up because you have the urge to use the toilet. So I would ask, is the urge to go to the bathroom waking you up, or are you just waking up and then perhaps you go to the bathroom because you're awake?
Now, that's a good point, because I drink lots of water. And you're right. I do wake up sometimes to go to the bathroom. You're absolutely right. Exactly. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So it's that urge that is awakening you.
That's one. Yeah, that's right. And because what happens is that I'll go to the bathroom, and as I said, I drink lots of water. And sometimes between 6 and 7 in the morning, I'm having a bowel movement. And then after I'm up moving around, I have another. Of course, after I eat, there's another. So, yeah, that's true.
Okay, so what then I might suggest is that you don't drink water 2 hours before going to bed, because that will allow your bladder to be empty, and then you'll be able to stay asleep longer. Having a bowel movement first thing in the morning is wonderful. We love eliminating those toxins. In Chinese medicine, we always say that when the stomach is full, the intestines are empty. And when the intestines are full, the stomach is empty. So that means one should have a bowel movement after each meal, because when the stomach is full, it instigates that peristaltic action, and you should have a bowel movement then. It sounds like your organs are functioning. I mean, I just got on, so I don't know what was discussed, but Dr. Michelle, you could see if I missed something just by my question.
No, I had not even thought about that. Phenomenal question. And see, that's what we're talking about, Dee. A lot of times we hear hoofbeats and we think zebras. And Dr. Ruth, she was like, look, what about horses? You know, are you drinking a lot of water before you go to bed? Duh. You know, so we were here talking about, and the cortisol levels and this and that. And you're like, are you getting up to pee? So sometimes something as simple as that can be part of the issue. We're not saying that it's the total issue, but it's definitely contributing. You know, the same way that Dr. Clark was saying that, you know, being able to wind down the mind, to put the mind at rest, put the mind at ease, you know, and so when you pull all of these different things together, Dee, that is when you're able to start to have that troubleshooting checklist for yourself. You know, so when you experience that situation where you're waking up, you say, okay, did I have water? Nope, it's not that. Okay, did I eat something proper, substantial? Got that right? Okay, did I do my prayer? Did I do my journaling? Did I turn off the TV and everything, say 2 hours before? Was I in bed at say 9:30? Did I do an Epsom salt bath? You know, so you have all of these different strategies that you can look to.
Yes.
When you now have this situation pop up for yourself.
Right.
This is great for your, my goodness. This is wonderful. Oh.
It's like a checklist that Dr. Michelle, you were just talking about, counting down. And, you know, often people say, oh, try melatonin. And I think that's the last.
Doesn't work for me.
Resort. Yes, it doesn't really.
What happens is my
experience. Yeah, right. In my experience, people in America, we think, oh, more is better. But even when you're invoking a hormone in the body, you need the tiniest dosage. And I'm not suggesting you try it, especially because you just gave me feedback that it doesn't work. It's really the last thing. I don't recommend that in my practice. So many people come into my practice and tell me what they're doing. They're self-medicating. And I say, well, all right, just pull back on the dosage. You need to start. And in America, we go, oh, well, I upped my dose. And I'm like, that's not really advisable on any hormone level, because they're all interacting. It's like a domino effect. When you're touching one, all of the other ones go like this too. And that's when your cortisol can go haywire, the testosterone, the estrogen. It's a very complex dynamic that's happening. And all of those, Dr. Lena Clark talked, I guess, I just heard Dr. Michelle say that you were talking about calming the mind down and just making sure there's no agitators, you know. I insist that my patients I suggest, I don't insist because I'm not in their bedrooms, but take the television out of the bedroom. You know, it should be for sleep, and sleep only. Well, you know, intimacy.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
You're in the bedroom, Ruth. You seem to have some insider knowledge here.
And especially since you were saying, Dee, that you love to watch TV and you've been keeping, you know, in tune with the politics and the news. So I'm sorry.
I'm engaged in the news, but
yes. I would not engage.
Drive those cortisol levels through the roof.
that definitely would do it.
I know it is the news, girl. It's knocking me out.
Yeah, I would definitely kind of stay away from that, because that will definitely take your cortisol level up, cause stress, and because you've lost two great people that were near to you.
Three.
So you have been experiencing, whether you know it or not, and your anxiety level has increased, and so you will have those racing, swimming thoughts. Your subconscious mind, like I stated, has over 1 billion, thoughts. So that's what happens a lot of times. Your mind is just going, it's racing, and then on top of it, you're in the media, constantly listening to the news. So, like I stated, meditation is great. Journaling is another way. Writing. I don't know if you like to write,
I do.
but that helps. And then try the music. The soft instrumental music it also helps while you're sleeping. Headphones.
Okay,
Mhm.
great.
All right.
Well, thank you all.
Yay. So we've touched on a lot of different areas tonight, a lot of different areas. I
A
really
lot.
want to thank everyone for joining us. And remember, we are here on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The doctor's in. We even had our guest cameo appearance with Dr. Ruth. I tell you, this was a jamming session. So,
Nice to meet you, Dr. Ruth.
It's so nice to meet you too, Dr. Lena Clark. D, good luck to you.
yes.
Thank
Sorry
you.
I came in late.
Oh, you
I
came in
so
right
much
on time.
appreciate you.
Yes,
so
thank
much
you.
appreciate you.
And definitely come and join us again. Share this information with other people. Tell them that we are here to answer any question, to talk about any concerns, because we recognize that our best immunity is community. I don't care what they want to tell you out there, your
Mhm.
best immunity through the storms of life
Yes,
is community. And that's
Unity.
we are here
So
today.
true.
yes.
That's so
Yeah.
true.
So my lovelies, and we gotta get some guys on here. It's tough. The guys think that
I
they're
know.
like Superman. They're like,
Yeah.
oh,
And
I
they
don't
really,
have
and their
any
guys
problems.
really need to call you.
We ain't got no issues. Yeah. But we've got to take our men to the doctors. We got to take our brothers, our fathers, our husbands, our sons,
Mhm.
whoever they are, take them, and if anything, bring them here. Maybe they don't want to go to the white coats, but we're here to just have friendly conversation.
Exactly.
That's right.
It's
That's
about
right.
Ruth sneaking into people's bedrooms. So hey, it's all good.
And it's free. And it's no cost, right?
you know. So I invite you guys to share and to invite others, and let us continue our party until next Wednesday.
Thank you all so much.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Yes.
And yes, have a wonderfully blessed Thanksgiving. Remember, don't eat too many turkey or else you will become a turkey. So
Yes. Wonderful holidays, everyone.
everything in
Thank you all.
moderation. Love you guys.
Love
Love you
Love you.
too. Blessings.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.